It's here. Can you believe that this is 100? The guys celebrate briefly at the beginning of the episode, but talk more about what this show has meant to them at the end. We can't say enough how grateful we are for each of you that has tuned in weekly, reached out to us, come to our socials, donated and sponsored our causes, met us in real life, and come along with us in this journey. Happy 100 to all of us. Here's to the next chapter of RecLess.
Hey, potential sponsor. Did you know that each episode of RecLess averages over 500 listens? That's 500 potential agencies that you could influence or reach. Over all of our social media and listening platforms, we have over 2,200 subscribers and followers. Not bad for this little passion project of ours from 3 professional work friends. This spot right here could be yours. Not only would you reach the Parks and Rec masses, but your contribution goes directly to supporting Parks and Rec professionals in our field through scholarships for professional development. Contact us today at recklesspod@gmail.com or check us out at recklesspod.com for more details. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to Season 6 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, 3 professional friends, if you know, from around the country, bringing you a surprise guest each episode. This project has made an impact, educates others, and continues to support a growing community. Thank you for being part of it. This is RecLess.
What's up?
You changed your shirt.
Yeah, I was working out. I was a little sweaty. It's amazing what a clean t-shirt will make you feel like. I won't have to take a bath for a couple days, Jay.
You sound like my
I
kid.
I know.
Okay.
What's up, Tom?
Okay. You guys good?
Yeah.
Tom, you're a little quiet, man. You good?
It's just taking it all in, poker talk, football, weather, just so many things. Hawaii.
Tom, if you're dirty, if you're sweaty and you put on a clean t-shirt, is that the equivalent of a bath, right?
No.
What's wrong with you guys?
I actually don't know any adults that take a bath to get clein.
You talking about a shower, or is this interchangeable?
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, I don't take baths.
He said bath.
I haven't taken a bath since I was like 8, but I call it a bath when I take a shower.
Our guest probably is regretting this choice to be here today.
Well, it's going to happen sooner or later.
Okay.
Might as well get to it.
Well, we good?
100.
Way to steal the thunder.
Get some pep in your step.
When you're not the host.
It's been so long, I think I forgot how to do this.
We haven't been here in a while, but
Yeah.
you know what? Let's do it. Let's start. Welcome to RecLess. And yes, Tom said it. Shane has said it. It's been a while, but we're here, and this is episode 100. Didn't know if we were going to get here, but we did it. So welcome to RecLess podcast, focusing on the industry of park and rec through 3 close friends throughout different parts of the country. My name is Jay Tryon. I'm going to be your host today. And hey, guys, Shane and Tom, we're here, 2026, episode 100. How you doing?
It's hard to believe. There was a couple moments, like you said, there's some breaking points there that who knew
this intro
we were going to make it. Yeah, yes, that's true.
Every intro.
Doing good. And I know this isn't probably relevant to the release time, but by the time this releases, we would have been in Wisconsin together too.
And have a Super Bowl champion.
And have a Patriots Seahawks.
Either Tom will be happy or I'll be happy.
And Jay will
not care. Either way. Won't care.
Yeah. I'm in a couple square pools, so if I can win some money, I'll be happy. But yeah, I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight. But I have some players that I like.
Your mutual hatred of the Patriots has to lean us towards.
Oh, if someone's telling me to pick a team today, it's definitely Seattle. But I don't really care. It's not going to change my mood if New England wins. But yeah, if I'm having to pick a side, it's Seattle, hands down. There's no doubt.
Sure.
Boo.
So, okay. Well, listen, we made it to 100, but I'm gonna save a a question about that milestone until after the show.
Okay.
So want to get to the guest, but I do want to have a normal question that we dive into before the guest. And it's funny, you guys just mentioned going to Wisconsin next week, and I just got back from a family vacation in Hawaii 2 weeks ago. We were there. It was the best trip I've ever been on, to be completely honest with you. And Hawaii is unique. It's a place that it makes you feel like you're in another country just because of the landscape, the beaches, the mountains. They have, not a different language, but they kind of have a different language. Everywhere you go, people are, they say aloha, they say mahalo. There's all these different sayings that they have. It makes you feel like another country. So my question to you today is, if you have the opportunity tomorrow, say you're traveling anywhere you want outside of the country, where are you going? Because I'm just curious, because I'm on this big travel kick right now.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Outside of the country,
Mhm.
where Shane, if I'm not, let's see, our guest just said New Zealand or Iceland.
Get that.
So, Shane, if I'm not mistaken, you have not been out of the country.
I haven't.
Not even
No.
Canada
Not even
or
Canada or
South
Mexico.
America? Okay.
I've been to the
Wow.
border. I've seen Mexico,
Okay.
waved at it. Haven't been to it though. Seemed nice.
Well, here,
Yeah.
I'm going to go first because I obviously knew the question, so I have some time to prepare for this, and you can think about it. But my bucket list trip out of the country has been and is Greece. I've always wanted to go to Greece. I will get there soon at some point. I shouldn't say soon. I will get there eventually. But my family is Greek, so I have a lot of ties to the food, the culture, the heritage, and my great grandmother was from Greece, and my grandmother went there several times. And I am just counting down the days that we can plan that trip. And one of the reasons why we've kind of hesitated it yet has been travel and just the time it takes to travel. But since we did this trip last week, with the flight time to Hawaii, it's like, you know what? It's not that bad. We can handle it. Long flights are manageable. Shane may not agree. So Shane may just pick like the closest place that's the
I can
shortest
drive
flight.
to.
But an 8-hour flight, 9-hour flight doesn't scare me anymore after the flights that we just had. So Greece is definitely my choice, and kind of similar to what I said about Hawaii. The landscape there, what I've seen, beautiful beaches, the cities, the mountains. It has a little bit of everything. So I would definitely second New Zealand as well. I've heard New Zealand is incredible, but my choice would be Greece.
Yeah, I could relate to it's hard because I would center a lot of this, I guess the response here towards food. I know we talk about that, and there's so many different foods to try and different local spins on what I think here in this country people try to do it or they bring it from their country. But yeah, I think if I had to narrow it down, I've had some individuals or friends that I know that have gone to Spain or Portuguese. I've heard great things about that in Greece. Rosalind Johnson told me an amazing story about Greece. Obviously, you look at some of those movies that are shot in Australia and New Zealand and places like that, they look amazing. I've been to Italy. There are places in Italy that I'd love to uncover again, just for those little spots, those local eateries, the fresh food. That was a great experience. I wish I could do it again. But something new that I've never really experienced, or in that type of, I guess that obviously I haven't experienced a lot of other different areas, but I'd like to check out Tokyo, Japan. I have just heard wonderful, wonderful things about the culture, the people, how welcoming. Obviously, it would be like, a complete shock just to see what the landscaping and all of that, you see it obviously in the movies. And also as a bonus, they do have what looks to be a really amazing Disney in Tokyo. So that would be a little bonus to exploring maybe the city, but also getting a little of that flair that obviously we enjoy so much.
That's a great answer. I like that.
We've Hannah and I talked about post-retirement, like trying to just do a year in Europe. So I'm not flying but once, and then for a year we just immerse ourselves and just rent a place for a year, long lease a place for a year, and just from there travel the train system or whatever. And in a lot of ways we're interested in an English speaking country, right? Because obviously low barrier to entry. So England, and I had family that came from England. I've had family here since the 1700s. We came on an English land grant to Virginia in the 1700s. But if you trace back that English family further, they started in Copenhagen in Germany. And so if I wasn't going for that trip with Hannah, or if I wasn't going for European football, which we've talked about would be one of the reasons I'd be interested in going. If I went on a historical type thing and I went to try to see where the original Mize families were from, Copenhagen and a section of Germany would be very interesting. So I think from what I was looking, they seem fairly close to each other. So sad I didn't know that. But so I think I would go to Copenhagen, which is as far back as I can trace my family lineage, and then go try to travel it maybe through Germany, and then maybe even try to go to Manchester in England and see the places. We have some stuff that shows when family members got married at a church in Manchester, for example, in like the 1600s or whatever. And so it'd kind of be cool just to try to retrace some steps. So I'd probably try that.
That's cool. Awesome. I like it. Two different answers with good explanations why. If you're picking up what I've been putting down, our guest today is a little different than our traditional guests. So we have an international guest today, which is
Are they from Djibouti? Did we miss out on our chance?
So here we go. Our guest today is an accomplished professional with extensive experience in managing, developing, and coordinating programs, projects, and events that drive transformation of public spaces. They have a bachelor's degree in tourism administration and a master's degree in public management and finance. They travel a lot for work.
Okay.
And there's two things that never leave their suitcase: a good book and a good pair of slippers. So Shane, I expect you to have one of those two things next week when you travel with us to Wisconsin. And you can choose which one.
Flippers.
There you go.
And what was the other one?
A good book.
There we go.
Okay.
Alchemy, reading it right now.
There's another similarity between you and this guest coming up. So you guys just might be attached. There you go.
Love it.
Our guest loves psychological thrillers. The darker and the more mind-bending, the better, is what they've told me.
That's why they're on this podcast.
In 2021, the guest was nominated for the Young Leader Award by the World Urban Parks Association, which recognizes young professionals committed to making a difference in their communities and the global public space sector.
Young Leader of the World?
Yes. For the world.
That's way better than the Robert Crawford. He just got trumped.
We did.
Our guest is part of an exclusive group of Mexican judges for the Green Flag Award.
Okay.
And I wanted to look that up to give you a little more insight on what the Green Flag Award is. It's the benchmark for international standards for publicly accessible parks and green spaces in the UK and around the world.
I thought it was what you looked for in a dating partner. Green flags versus red flags.
Nope.
No?
You would be a red flag. That's for sure. Our guest shares something with Shane. They both love road trips and long drives just for the joy of incredible landscapes and just getting lost in the journey.
Okay, let's go. And they're doing this from wherever they're living.
Yeah. So our guest currently serves as the executive director of the organization they work for and previously held the title of director of content and education. They also love to dance. So they can't imagine going to a party and not ending up on the dance floor.
That's where they definitely differ with Shane on that one.
Yeah, we went in opposite directions there.
This person's passionate about education and public space and development. So without further ado, today's guest serves as the executive director of the National Association of Parks and Recreation of Mexico. Please welcome Vitoria Martin.
Hello.
Welcome.
How's it going?
Now I want to travel because you were talking about different amazing places. So we should record a podcast in some of those places.
Well, I mean, for us,
we're in.
I would go to Mexico in a heartbeat, but it wouldn't be fun for you because then you wouldn't get to travel.
It's okay. It's okay. You have a home here whenever you want. So Shane, now you can cross the border and come here.
Yeah. I've got to get a passport first.
Okay, you should start working on that.
That takes some time, Shane. Can't just pick it up.
I'm impressed you actually know that though, versus just like trying to go, like bringing a monster on a flight. You would just show up and not be able to get there.
I can get into Mexico without the passport. I can get back without it. It's the problem, I think. I think I could cross in some spots where you don't have to show your passport, but I think I have to show it on the way back. So
is that true? Can you get in?
I don't think so.
No. Vitoria, come on. El Paso through Juarez.
But, I mean, I mean, you can try. That's for sure. You can try.
Now we're talking.
Well, we're talking about legally here, not the other way.
If I couldn't get back, Vitoria's got a home for me, so we're fine.
Of course. Of course. I'm based in the south part of Mexico, so in the Yucatan Peninsula. So you'll be able to to explore different parts. We have a lot of archaeological sites. It's kind of warm here, but it's totally worth it, and the food is amazing. So please, whenever you want, guys, you're welcome here. And thank you for having me on your 100th podcast and episode. So
That's awesome.
Thanks for being here. We'll
I'm
go
sure we're gonna
international
get food later for sure. But yeah, Vitoria, can we start with just your journey? You know, how you got into Parks and Recreation, and maybe was there a aha moment when you knew that was the right career path for you?
So, just to give you a little bit of context, here in Mexico and the rest of Latin America, you do not go to college for like Parks and Rec. You can go for biology or architecture or urbanism, but there's not like a career path, like academic path for like Parks and Rec management. So that's something really different from the US. So as you mentioned, Jay, I studied tourism administration. And in my last semester of college, I was already working. I had two jobs, and a professor recommended me for ANPR, which is the National Association of Parks and Rec of Mexico, inside the Department of Content and Education, which is pretty much logistics, programs, events, editorial. And I was like, no, I cannot say yes. I cannot go to that interview because I already have two jobs. But she was like, hey, I already recommended you. So out of respect and just being grateful for my professor, I came to the interview. I loved it. I had no idea what they were talking about. I've never heard of like parks and rec and everything that entails for that sector, but I just knew that I wanted to be in there, you know, and I wanted to work towards parks and rec and how that impacts the community. So I went from two jobs to three jobs, and I was loving every part of it. So we had our first conference. If you ANPR is very similar to NRPA in the US. So we worked with professionals that are already working in Parks and Rec. So we had our first conference, and I just loved every minute of it. I loved the sessions and the workshops and getting to know people and just hearing what they did and, like I said, how they impacted their communities. So I was just like, I love this. I need to stay here. And I was already teaching at the moment. I gave classes in junior high and high school. And I started just cutting hours from teaching. And eventually I left the other job, and here I am. And I just cannot imagine working somewhere else or in another sector. I love Parks and Rec.
Vitoria, just so we have a grasp on it, what is parks, a local park or public space, like the management of that look like? Is that in a municipality, much like it is here? Is it more of a conservancy or nonprofit, or how do the park and rec professionals you're working with, who pays them? You know, who's their funding source?
Yeah, so it depends. That's a great question. So the structure here in Mexico is similar in some ways, but it's also quite different depending on the city and the level of government. There are municipalities that the main parks or the biggest parks are funded by the government. There are some that are funded by like nonprofits or a trust or something like that. But in many municipalities, Parks and Rec here in Mexico, it's not always like a single unified department. It's often just like the responsibilities are spread across different areas. So parks might sit under public works or environment, urban development or social development, but recreation and community programming, it's handled normally by culture, sports, or social services department. So while the work is happening, it's often more fragmented, it's not very collaborative, and it's not unified towards the same goal. So normally here in Mexico, there tends to be a stronger focus on parks maintenance and basic operations. And that means that the spaces are open, they are safe, and they are functional, but the recreation programming or nature education and long-term planning sometimes receives less attention or fewer resources. So that's slowly changing. Right now, we have a few municipalities that now have parks and rec systems, and we work really closely with them. but that this happens in larger cities, metropolitan agencies, or cities with big funding.
Vitoria, I want to kind of ask a little bit more about that and piggyback off of what you had mentioned, kind of the park maintenance piece. When I've traveled and here we kind of have, so let me back up to what I see here at least in my area. And
He's
then
going to talk about
of course,
Disney at some point,
in the
Victoria. I'm
that's a
sorry.
different park, different type of park. We might, who knows? So I think of two typical types of park here in US. And so you look at a really active park, which has athletic fields, playgrounds, and then there might be hybrids, but then there's also kind of the passive type of park that might have
Mm-hmm.
trails and, ponds, benches, just nature.
Yeah.
What's the most, or what's a typical park like in Mexico that you're talking about that's a focus on the park maintenance? And I asked that because when I went to England, I was really kind of taken back. The parks are not like the parks here. It's just different. It's like people go out there with blankets and they go and
Mm-hmm.
just relax, and it's very passive. I didn't see a whole lot of those, playgrounds or the athletic fields, at least where I was. So I'm just curious, what's a typical park system look like in Mexico?
So for those cities that actually have park systems, there's a balance between those bigger parks that have more of like an active recreation planning and activities happening as in the US. And there's a bigger number of parks, especially if there are neighborhood parks that are more passive recreation and programming. So that's pretty much the same. I totally agree with you. When you go to other countries, the use of those parks are very different, and that's something that we try to emphasize here in Mexico. Even if you're working in the same parks and rec system, depending on the area within the city that you are in, is that the type of use that the community is gonna give to that space. So here our biggest issue, I would say, that are the neighborhood parks, because those are the larger number in the cities, and those are the ones that cost more money in terms of time, resources, and stuff like that. But we do have bigger parks that have active recreation and programming, but they are fewer in most cities. For example, here in my hometown in Merida, we have I can think about one specific park that is in the main, or in the historical center of the city. It's a newer park, and that one has a lot of activities and a lot of programming. But if I think of older parks and neighborhood parks, they're passive, and there are some that the community has started doing their own things, like Zumba classes or yoga, but they're things that the community organizes, or that the community appropriates that space, instead of the local municipality actually engaging with them and trying to plan and think ahead. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I was going to actually follow up that question. Tom asked it from a facility standpoint, or amenity, I guess. But now I'm curious on the programming side of it. And since you went down that path with community-driven programs might be put on by the community, how is that organized and how is that marketed for people to know that if it's not done by a group of people that have the means for flyers or websites or Facebook or social media, or is that still done that way just through community driven means like that?
For those parks and spaces that do not have this management of an office or a parks and rec system actually working through that, normally it's done by word of mouth. The community, and there's a leader in each community, and they're like, hey, we can do this, we can start implementing these classes, or we have a lot of kids in the area, so let's do this for them. So it's more like an organized committee, let's say, and those are the people that keep things going, rather than, and maybe they have like a Facebook group or like a WhatsApp group or something like that, but it's not through like official channels. And the parks that do have that, they already have all of that settled by like the city parks and rec system. So that's the difference. And I would say like one of the things that we have here is that we have a really big barrier when something is done by the government, because there's like a
Distrust.
you don't trust them. Exactly. There's a distrust, that they might be there because now it's political campaigning and it's really useful for them, but in a few months they're going to go away. We also have the issue of they go and they build a park that they think that the community needs, but they never go through like a participatory process. And after that, that park kind of gets abandoned because nobody uses them because it's actually not what they needed. And that's even worse. And that's one of the things that we also try to talk about with decision makers. It's not about just building the park, what's going to happen with the park afterwards, because that's the most difficult thing. One of the easiest is just to build it and design it and create it. But afterwards, who's going to handle all of that? And who's going to keep the park being active and being what the community needs?
So the programming and outreach to a community is definitely more grassroots based and community driven versus government driven. Is there a belief in the United States? It doesn't really matter on which side of the political spectrum you're on. There is some belief that government programs to some level of social service, whether it's after school programming or free and reduced lunch or some sort of youth sports program. Overall, I think if you polled our public, they would agree that those are good things. Those are worth investing in. Now, some of them may have a degree at which they want to see that funded, but would you say that on average, the Mexican resident feels the same way, but it just might not be funded by a government entity? It's just funded at a church level or some sort of community-based level, or do they want to see their federal dollars or their local dollars still going into those social service type programs?
I think they definitely want it. It's just not a common practice here. So
do they not
for
trust
example,
them to do it correctly or maybe allocate the money in the right locations?
I mean, yes, but
Yeah.
also here in Mexico and in the rest of Latin America, for example, you in the US, you have community centers and kids go there after school and they take boxing classes or they have, I don't know, help with their homework and stuff like that. And then when it's summer, you have summer programs and that's like a huge thing. And you know that's going to happen in summer. And that's not a thing here in Mexico. And I think in Latin America, like we don't have community centers, we don't have recreation facilities. We might have parks that have different rooms if you want to go have a meeting or go with your friends or something like that. But normally, and I would say like most of the cases, we don't have that. So even though people want it, they don't know how to ask for it because it's not a common practice. I would say that, of course, they want safe, well-maintained, they want welcoming public spaces, and they want active programs, but they might not know the channels of how to ask for it. There's definitely an interest in having them, and there's the need because here, if you have the resources to go like a private gym or private classes or something like that, you can do it. But if you cannot afford it, then that's it. So for those cities that do have a Parks and Rec system, they do have programs, but they are more like workshops or maybe during the weekend or something like that. And they're doing a great job because it's also a win-win for both. And there's also a process when you have to kind of learn with the community of how to use those programs, and how to plan them and how to take advantage of those. But for the cities that do not have a Parks and Rec system or that they do not have a planning process that it works with all the offices of the local municipality that needs to work towards the same goal, it would be really difficult to have it. Again, I do think residents and the community wants them and need them. But as we are not used to it, we don't know how to ask for it or we don't know how to get to that point.
And Tom, before you hop in, just the last point on this, I guess from your perspective, because you're kind of the Pied Piper for your industry, right? You're the one that comes to other countries, including America, and sees these types of facilities working well. That's got to probably be incredibly frustrating that there's almost no mechanism that you could, even if you described taxpayer dollars can build you a recreation center that you can use year round and youth sports can house out of it and a ESL class can house out of it or whatever, a camp can house out of it. Y'all don't really have the mechanisms in place. I guess that's got to probably be pretty frustrating for you to see it work well in other nationalities or other countries, but it's just not something that it almost seems like a too big of a mountain for you to even solve, right?
Yeah, and I see some improvement. Like I said, those cities that are already working on the creation of their systems and parks rec, that's a win, you know? And we're slowly getting there, but it's a process. It's a never-ending process. And as part of what we do at AMPR is every year we partner with a city in the US. So what we do is we open a call for decision makers and people that already work in parks and also people that work in providers like equipment and playgrounds and stuff like that, and we take them to the US so we can learn of what that city is doing. So in 2025 we went to Washington DC, we've done New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and what we try to do is to, hey, this is possible, you know, you just need the right processes, you need to work towards that goal, you need to also take into consideration a lot of stakeholders, you know, for this to come into place. But that's definitely possible, and that's why we do what we do. Like I said, we are improving. It's a process, and I'm happy to see that some cities are already working towards that. But it's definitely a process that is going to take us time. And one of the things that we are slowly changing is that in the US, parks and rec are a priority in every city. And you have a budget. You might not have enough budget, but you have a budget. And here in Mexico and other countries of Latin America, parks are like the last thing that comes into mind. So nobody wants that park because it costs money. So then there's not an office in the local municipality that wants to take that park, you know, and that public space. So that's one of the main things that it's not a priority for a lot of decision makers. And unless that becomes a priority, we're not going to be able to change the context of it.
Well, it's interesting to hear that from your context because in so many cases, we still in the States don't feel like we are a top priority. And we're, you know, when a cut needs to happen to a budget, like a lot of times Park and Rec is the first budget to be cut. Obviously, we're still at that luxury of having a budget, unlike what you said for a lot of your municipalities and your cities in Mexico that don't even have that. So, you know, it's hard for us to maybe swallow that and say, well, man, we still are getting cut, but others in other countries don't even have any budget at all. So it's just a different take for us to grasp.
Yeah, it's a different context. And like I said, there's an increasing desire for equity, for access. A lot of residents want parks that are closer to them and where they have better quality of life across neighborhoods and spaces. So I get what you're saying, and there's never gonna be enough budget, you know, to manage the spaces. But I think it's a matter of how we can switch the thinking of how to be more efficient or how to see that a lot of what we're doing actually serves the community. And one of the things that we have here in Mexico and Latin America is that we don't have the data to support that. And as AMPR, that's what we try to work towards that, because unless you show them numbers, they are not going to realize how important this is. So for example, NRPA in the US knows that for every dollar that it's invested in public spaces, they save $3 in public health. But we don't have those numbers here. So what we're trying to do is to gather that data and then go to those decision makers and say, like, here, this is not a cost or this is not an expense. This is an investment, and you need to make it.
We'll be right back.
Hey, listener, is it time to DTR this relationship and make you a sponsor? I don't even know what the hell that means, but I do know that each episode of RecLess averages over 500 listeners. That's 500 potential ears attached to agencies that you could influence or reach. Over all of our social media and listening platforms, we have over 2,200 subscribers, and it's growing. This spot right here could be yours. Not only would you reach the Parks and Rec masses, but your contribution goes directly to supporting Parks and Rec professionals in the field through scholarships for professional development. Contact us at recklesspod@gmail.com or check us out at recklesspod.com for more details. Okay, now back to the show.
So I was going to go in a different direction. Maybe I'll hold off on that because I want to continue on to this conversation and talk a
It's
little bit more about
fascinating conversation.
AMPR. And yeah, I think we look internally. The United States is obviously rather large, 50 states, and within each state, there's all these different municipalities or private groups that were, Shane, we talked about this last Thursday, that there's a little envy when you look towards your neighbor or towards maybe someone in Texas, whatever that may be. And I'm sure you feel that when you're traveling and you're looking at what resources or programs and services we have in the US or in other countries. So you talked a little bit about the data, and I guess I want to kind of further ask. First question is a simple question. Do you attend NRPA
I do.
conference? Okay, so with that, what are you taking back on a concrete level, maybe now more in the recent 2, 3, 4 years, that you're very confident in saying this is something we can apply here now? What is it that a typical NRPA experience is for you, and what are you looking for? What are some of the hot topics that you've really implemented or begun to expose your membership?
I Every time that I go to an NRPA conference, at the end of the day, I'm like, oh my God, so many ideas, so many people that I connected with. And it's really hard to just wrap up everything. And when I get to the office, everyone knows and they're like, oh my God, here she comes. But it's just so exciting to see all the possibilities. I wouldn't use the word envy. I would use more like an admiration, and it just gives me more, I don't know, more power, or it makes me think about how can we be more resilient so we can get there in a few years. And just comparing, for example, NRPA with AMPR in Mexico, NRPA has more than 60,000 members and we have around 3,000. So we are smaller, but we were created 10 years ago, and NRPA has, I think, 50 years or 60 years. So we're slowly getting there, and it's really stressful, just as in this context, as in our personal lives, to compare ourselves with other people's journey. Um, I think a lot of the key topics are community building, infrastructure, programming, and I don't know how to put this into words, but the collaboration within in the same department. But let's say you are in charge of maintenance and facilities, and you're in charge of programming, and you're in charge of, I don't know, um, aquatics, but they're all working together because at the end it affects the same, the same sector, the same city. And that's something that we don't have here, because it's like if I help you or if I work with you, then I'm not gonna get what I need. So it's a lot of um, it's just like either it's you or it's me. And that's something that I really admire when I go to the NRPA conferences, because normally the whole team is there from one same Parks and Rec system, and they talk about how it works cross departmental. And I just think that's amazing. So it just gives me hope of, because the US was not always like it is right now, and your parks were not always like they are right now. So it just gives me hope that we can get there someday. And I take note of everything that I learned so I can come back here in Mexico and talk to the different Parks and Rec departments that we have relation with, and that we talk with them, and we're like, okay, this is what we learn, and that's what we do the events. So for example, we have, like, we call it park tour, and we take them to the US, as I was saying, and it's like, see, this is possible, this is how you can do it. When we went to Chicago, we went to Millennium Park, and the CEO gave us a tour. And at the end, we had around 40 participants, and they were all decision makers and like superintendents of different parks in different parts of Mexico. And she gave every one of them their budget. Like, this is our folder with our budget, and this is everything that we do, and this is how we do it. And they were like, oh my God, this is gold for us, because a lot of what we do is kind of like a learn and how do you say, like trial and
Down
error.
there. Yep.
Exactly. So just giving them these type of tools and resources is really important. So we do that with our membership. We have a magazine, we have a podcast as well, we have webinars. We have a digital library, and what we want to do is just give them as much resources, as much tools, and also a space for them to connect with peers, with other people that, hey, I'm having the same struggle in my park. What are you doing about it? And they talk, not only about what they are doing and what is working, but also what is not working, because we can also learn from that. So that's something that we try to do from AMPR towards the parks professionals that we have here.
All right, I'll continue that on with programming real quick. If you guys don't mind, this doesn't necessarily have to be a comparison with NRPA or anything like that. It could be something you're taking back, but just I think for our listeners and the fascination of the differences of culture and what's emphasized in lifestyle, I would say that, here youth sports has always been huge, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I could assume that soccer is probably a local favorite, and
Never heard of soccer.
You're probably yeah, right. But you're
Football.
probably walking around in these parks and you're seeing kids that are playing soccer or
Yeah.
adults. I'm sure. And aside from that, though, what can you give us kind of a little bit of a picture of historically what are the activities and programs that you see most in the country that most everybody participates in? So that's maybe on the historical context, and then trending now, when I think about here, you look at things that just weren't around 10 years ago. And obviously one that we think about is pickleball or, something like that. So that's kind of a twofold question, but what are some of the activities that were maybe typical or more historically engaged in by individuals? And what are some that you're seeing on the rise that are kind of newer to your, to the citizens?
Yeah, I would say like you mentioned, soccer or football, as we call it here. It's a big thing. It also depends on the region because, for example, where I'm from, that it's the south part of Mexico, it's more baseball compared to soccer. But if you go to the north and central part of Mexico, it's soccer. So that's one thing. Also, it's not like a activity thing, but it's really common to see like grandparents taking their, they here in Mexico, a lot of the common practice is that parents are working, so the grandparents are taking care of the kids. So a lot of in the afternoon, you can see that the grandpa or the grandma with the kids in the parks. So that's very common. I would say also people, just like teenagers, and here they also play like softball, and they do like a mix of softball with soccer and things like that. So those are the typical things that you see. And when I was growing up, I would see and I would go and play in the park. But now I would say that things that are a little bit more educational, more like towards environment, maybe like local food kind of things, like a farmer's market or dancing classes. That's a huge thing here right now. So I feel like right now it's more a switch into going more actively into consciousness. As I was saying, like climate change and like workshops, different classes, a lot of music, and also a lot of art. I don't think art was a really common thing a lot of years ago. And right now there's a lot of like art classes or even like graffiti areas, because graffiti is also an expression of art. So that's something that we have here a lot. And there's some parks that obviously they deal with graffiti in a bad way, but there are also certain parks that are like, okay, let's create this area that is for graffiti, and residents actually just use that area for graffiti. So now it's like an art expression. So I would say that those are kind of the switches that we've seen towards the years. But obviously, in something that we need to learn as parks professionals is that our community changes and we need to learn how to adapt towards their needs and towards their interests.
And to piggyback off that, because the programming side of it is spot on with there's always trends that are going to change. There's going to be, traditional programs that don't go away. What about from the event side? Is there a large push for events? Where we are here in the States, there's traditional events like movies in the park or concerts in the park that are always going to be common themes. But then there's your one-off like festivals that happen throughout a different year, whether it's, themed to a holiday or themed with a parade like July 4th or fireworks. Are there different events that are different parts of Mexico that are more popular than others, or is events not as popular from a park and rec perspective there?
They are popular. There are certain parks that are obviously bigger parks. For example, in Monterrey, in north part of Mexico, we have a park that is called Fundidora, and it's like huge. It's, I think, around 80 hectares. And they have a really big concert every year.
Right.
It's more than 300,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that it's a big thing. Obviously, not every park can hold that kind of event, but we do have like movies at the park or Sunday something, or Friday night at the park, and they do different kind of activities. We have a lot of like smaller concerts with the orchestra, like the local orchestra or something like that. That's very huge. And one of the things that I feel like it's common across the whole country is for October, Day of the Dead, most of the parks have a huge event towards that. I was in the north part of Mexico this week, and we visited a park, and they had their event in October for Day of the Dead, and they organize a parade across the city, and then it ends at the park, and I think that's pretty cool. And they had around 8,000 people just in like a weekend, because
Wow.
Day of the Dead is a huge thing here in Mexico. So yeah, I would say that's one of the main things in most of the parks, especially the bigger parks of each city.
So I got a couple questions about ANPR. Am I saying it right? It's the
Yeah.
Association National Parks and Rec. Is it something like that?
Yeah.
Loosely. Yeah. How many members do you have, and what's your conference look like every year?
Okay, so we have around 3,000 members, individual members, and also organizational members. So other Parks and Rec systems, or like municipalities, or certain offices that work in like public space and stuff like that. So those are our members. Last year was a pretty difficult year for us because we're a membership based organization. And in 2025 and part of 2024, we had local, state, and federal elections. So that was really hard for us because authorities are our biggest, let's say, clients, and membership based. So that was pretty hard for us. But we made it, and here we are. And right now we're planning our next conference. Each year we have our annual conference, and this year is going to be in Tijuana, which is in the north part of Mexico, really close to the border, Shane.
Yeah,
So
close
there's
to
your opportunity.
California, right? San
Exactly.
Diego.
It's like 20 minutes away from San Diego. So
There you
there's
go.
your opportunity.
Mhm.
And we have workshops, we have educational sessions or like breakouts. We have an expo also with providers, and we have keynotes. And what we try to do is to give a platform for that city to showcase what they are doing, best practices, their projects, their parks, their public spaces, and also give space for people from every city or every country in Latin America to go and participate. We open a call of abstracts for the breakouts and educational sessions. Every year we get around 100 proposals. And right now we are in that process of curating what we get so we can work them into the program. So that's what we're doing right now. But it's in May, from the 13th to the 15th of May. And we're very excited because it's the first year that we're going so far away. Normally, even though our offices are in the south part of Mexico, all of our events are in other parts of Mexico. We've even had two conferences, one in Argentina and another one in Ecuador. And
Wow.
we've been able to collaborate with other countries as well. And in each conference, we have around 7 to 8 countries that participate. In 2022, we hosted the World Parks Conference. And that was pretty exciting as well because it was a whole week. We had more than 100 conferences, around 10 keynotes, almost 20 workshops. So it was very big, but it was a really good effort to bring the whole world together. We had 42 countries participating. So that was huge.
I was scrolling through your Instagram. I saw that you had Jesus, who's now in Austin, speak at one of your conferences, and you had Jane Miller, who's an esteemed park and rec professional, speaking at that World Congress conference. Do you see a lot of people that walk away with takeaways from American Park and Rec professionals? Is that something where they're like, yeah, that's something? It was because going back to Tom's point, Tom and I spoke to a group last week, and Tom's agency was probably very similar to most of the agencies we spoke with, Tom, I would just say. And then I'm doing a lot more capital improvement. And I'm doing what I'd be doing in a couple years, what it might take them a career to do. And so sometimes it feels like after that call, me and Tom were talking, it felt like, man, you don't want to do something that's not applicable. You don't want to talk to someone and someone say, well, that was great. I love that for them, but I'll never be able to do that, type of thing that Shane's doing in Pflugerville. Do you see that your attendees get something incredible out of like Jane and Jesus or any other American park and rec professionals who've come down to speak in the past?
Of course, and that's why we always try to gather different contexts and different professionals, even though they are from the US. It's a pretty good benchmark for us. And like I was saying, it gives us like a perspective of we can achieve that. That's possible. It's not
what's to come.
Thinking,
yeah, what's the future
exactly.
look like? Yeah.
Exactly. So we've had Jesus, we've had Jane. Right now for May, I'm working on a panel as a keynote to have a panel with different parks directors that are within Latin context. So for example, I'm talking with San Antonio, with Chicago,
Homer.
and yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So trying to see how we can have them at the conference so we can learn from them. And when they're not all of our guests are Hispanic or Latin, but when we can get someone like that, they have the best of both worlds because they understand the context, but they also know how that can be achievable. So it definitely, it's not always, it's not only possible or it's not only positive for our attendees, but also for those people that are coming because they get to interact and to see other possibilities, because even though we lack resources and we're working there's a lot of things that we are doing also good, and we are working in our parks and public spaces and we can always learn. And there's also always a good opportunity for us when we interact with other professionals.
Well, two of the three of us have passports, so RecLess and Tijuana sounds pretty possible.
We can do a crossover with our podcast and your podcast.
Love
Sign
it.
me in.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We were actually talking before we got started, guys, and she's been on a podcast with Edwin in previous situations.
Yes,
That's awesome.
We collaborate very closely with HPPR. That Edwin is the chair of that. So we work very closely with them and we help them a lot as well with like tools, resources, also to kind of get closer with the Latin communities. And I've been also to other parts and they're like, can you help me with this translation? Is this like good? And is this a acceptable practice that you do back at home? So there's always like, we're open to help and we're open to support other professionals. So yes, I would love to see you guys in Tijuana.
Drivable, fellas. I can make the drive.
But you can't get across the border.
Well, I still think I can. I don't know if I can get back. Yeah. I'll just become
You don't
a
need
Mexican
to get back.
resident.
It's
There
fine.
you go. Yeah. Y'all got jobs down there. Her LinkedIn says they're hiring. So I'll just go work for her in
Just make sure you bring Hannah with you so that if you can't come back, then she'll get to see you again.
That's right.
Now, we obviously talked about earlier, you have come to the NRPA conference. Do you know if other members of your association have gone to NRPA, or are you primarily going because, obviously for your role, it's really important, but do other people come from Mexico to go to the conference?
A very small group. Every time that we go to an NRPA conference, we try to talk with our really close parks professional and say like, hey, we need to go. We've also participated in Greater and Greener.
Yeah.
And we try to create like a Mexican delegation of people so we can go and visit. So we try to do that. There's also like a consulting agency that tries to always to go with us to those kind of events. So it's not very common, but we try to create these little groups and go and learn and
Greater and Greener. This year's in
other.
Austin. Are you coming to Austin?
That's the plan.
Looks like we're going to have a meetup.
Love it.
I have a side question that I don't know that if there's any correlation. What is the involvement or the the thought of collaborating with groups like Parques de Mexico. Is that something that you partner with in your organization?
Parques de Mexico, it's a consulting agency. So they're
Okay.
like a private office and they are based in the same city as we are. So we do collaborate with them a lot because we share a few projects, but they are like independent from us.
Okay. So and the reason why I ask, I was thinking about it earlier, but when I was at a conference with NRPA in Las Vegas. So just to
Mm,
give you a little history, Shane, Tom, and I, we met all through the NRPA Young Professional Network. One of the things that the YPN does is they take a young professional to lunch. And I actually got paired with Christina De Leon, who at the time
oh,
was working with Parques de Mexico. And I know, she's been involved with other things since then. And I think she went back to work with them again. But I was curious on the collaboration of if there's a connection there between your group and their organization.
yeah, we collaborate. Like I said, they are an independent organization. They're a private consulting agency, and we're a nonprofit. We're an NGO, but we do collaborate with them. Actually, the CEO of Parques de Mexico is part of our board.
Okay.
So yeah, we do get to collaborate a lot with them.
I think she's the one that called me the grandfather.
Yeah, Christina?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an age joke. It's not very nice, Victoria. I've got another question for you before we get to round robin. And it looks like Tom may have one as well. Um, I would just love to hear what's one thing you're super excited about in the industry within the context of Mexico that's happening or is going to be happening in the next couple of years that you're just excited that you're starting to see the needle move on.
I would say the creation of parks and rec systems within the cities. I started this journey around 8 years ago, and when I started, I there was I don't wanna I don't wanna say this so sure because I might be mistaken. But when I started, I don't remember a city that had a Parks and Rec system, and now I can think of at least six of them. So I mean, we have more
Awesome.
cities that could benefit that, but just like I said, it's a process, and I'm excited to see how cities are working towards this goal. And last year and a few years back, we had some cities that were like, hey, we're working on the creation of a Parks and Rec system. Can you support us? Can you connect us with this person or with this project? Then we're more than happy to do that. And also, another thing that I'm very excited about is the Green Flag Award, because that's a really great certification for the standards of each park. And it ensures that it's going to have a continuity, in the projects. And because some things that sometimes what happens is that they change the leader or the political party changes, and the team changes, and then a lot of the things that were going to be done in that park, they just stop. So this certification ensures that the quality of the programs, that the processes, that the standards are remain the same or just go better, and they start raising the bar. So we started this program of the certification in 2019. And when we started Green Flag Award in the UK, they said like, hey, this is great. We can collaborate, but it's going to take you at least 5 years to get your first park certified. And I was like, challenge accepted. And in that first year, we got 2 parks. And now in 2025, we closed with 21 parks that have the Green Flag Award.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm really excited to see also how more parks and more local municipalities are interested in getting this certification, because I feel like it proves that we're doing something right and that they are trying to see how they can improve the management of those spaces.
Awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you kind of answered the question that I was going to ask at the end of Shane's question there, and what I always find fascinating about associations, and here obviously in the U.S. we have NRPA, but every state has their own association, and then some of the states are broken into regions, and you have regional
Mhm.
associations. A lot of volunteerism, and that's a big part of this association management. NRPA utilizes so many volunteers, for example, to run and operate the conference, or for other initiatives, schools that they run.
Mhm.
So, director schools, revenue management, all of that. is you talked about the program of certification, and I think what we've seen from NRPA, we'll just speak from that. I always really enjoy when there's a program that they come out with that's really useful to its members. For a couple examples I can think of is, they've really beefed up Parks and Rec Month, and they provide a lot of resources and data to agencies to use and leverage to engage their community. The certification program's either individual or accreditation for an agency. So you talked about that, your certification for the Parks and the Green Flag Award. Is there a program or several that you've, since your time in your position that you've been able to bring to your members that you're, just something you're really proud of or something that was a new initiative that didn't exist before?
Yeah, we have an online academy because right now, even though our last name is Mexico and it's AMPR Mexico, we have a lot of members that are from other parts of Latin America. And I understand that not everyone has the budget to come to our events, and to go physically to certain things. So we created an online academy, and now we have online courses that are always available for people to take, and we have different competencies and different topics that they can learn there. There's communications, there's maintenance, there capital projects, there's just the leadership, public health. So people can take either course by course, depending on what they are interested in, or they can take the whole competency and then have a certificate for that. So that's one of the things that I'm pretty excited about because it's a way of eliminating the barriers, when we're talking about people from other countries. So that's one. And then, as you were saying, we also have a volunteer program for our conferences and for most of our events. So we love to give space for those people that might not have the access or because of budget or because something else to go to our events. And it's open also for students that they might not be parks professionals yet, but they want to see what that world entails, And I always say that for me, Parks and Rec is like Narnia. Once that you open that door, you don't have any idea of what's in there, but you love it and you just want to keep learning and stuff. So yeah, I would say that's something very important for us, the students, so they can see what else they can do. And we also have a Parks and Rec month. For us is in October. And we also have a lot of resources and a lot of programs that we develop for that month in specifically.
That's awesome. Well, Vitoria, we're going to shift gears to our what we call round robin. So just hit you with some quick questions. And
Okay.
first thing that comes to mind, it can be some of it's work related, some of it may not be work related. It's going to be any topic that we think of. And I'm going to kick it off with a little flip on the question I asked the guys up first is if you could travel anywhere right now, but it has to be somewhere in the United States, where is a city that you've never been to that you would want to visit for the first time?
Oh, I've never been to, because I was going to say Iowa, but I've been to Iowa. That I've never been to and that I want to visit.
Pflugerville.
Don't give her any
Hey,
ideas.
if you have me, I'll go visit.
Come on.
I don't think she's ever heard of Pflugerville before today.
It
I
still
haven't been
counts.
to Seattle, and I would
Okay.
I would love to go in a road trip on that area,
Beautiful.
like Washington. Yeah.
Piggybacking off of that, with all of your experience in the United States, my questions, and I do this a lot, it's two questions. I want to know, I want to know what is the local fare where you are specifically food wise that the three of us are visiting this is what we have to try. And the second question is, what's the best thing you've ever had to eat in the United States in all of your travels? I'm just curious. We ask this question a lot about people's states, but we don't usually have individuals who come to United States and, pizza. Is that a thing in Mexico? Is it something you've tried here that you're like, oh, that's disgusting? So yeah, curious about where are we eating, where you are, and what's the best thing you've had here in the United States?
Okay. Two things come in mind from the US that I'm actually craving now: chili, because I cannot get good chili here, and Giordano's pizza from Chicago.
Okay.
All right.
Hey.
So
Now,
those are the things that I would love to have right now.
now see,
Don't
Shane
ruin
has-
it. Don't
I could
ruin
make a
it.
good
I
chili
gotta
for you. Yeah,
ask.
we could make.
Shane has a different take on chili. Does the chili that you like have beans or no beans?
Beans.
Okay.
Okay. So it's
Most people would say that, but not
yes,
Shane.
yes.
It's not
Yeah.
chili. It's some sort
I
of thick soup.
I've tried chili without beans, but I think I prefer with beans.
I agree.
Um, Sour cream,
Yeah,
crackers.
cheese, sure.
Yes. Okay,
What are we
so
talking about?
that's those are the two things that I would like to have right now from the US because now I'm craving that. And then from here, I do want you to understand that the food here in the south part of Mexico is very different than the north part of Mexico. Um, Here in where I'm from, in the Yucatan Peninsula, we have a lot of Mayan food. So it's like another context, And I think I would make you have something from that aspect. So not like tacos that are like a really common thing here in Mexico, but more something Mayan from my region. So I would say we have something that is called, you're not going to understand, but I'm going to say it anyway. We have something that is called papazules, which is like tortilla with hard boiled eggs inside. And in top, they put, it's a green sauce, but it's made from pumpkin seed and
Oh,
then tomato sauce.
That sounds amazing.
Delicious.
okay.
Yes. So I think I would make you try that. But we have a lot of things. So yes.
That sounds pretty good. Throw some strip steak in there. I'm all in.
No.
You travel. You said you like road trips. So
Yes.
what's your travel rig of choice? What would you, when you're driving around Mexico or anywhere else in the South Peninsula, what's your travel vehicle?
If I'm traveling, I tend to rent something. If it can be like a SUV or like a
Mm,
Ford Raptor. I really like those kind of trucks. Or like a Jeep kind of thing.
okay.
But it also depends the type of road trip, if it's more, for example, I was in Australia 2 years ago and I did the trip for the Great Ocean Road. So for that, like an SUV was enough, but I've been to others that you need like a bigger car or like a bigger truck. So it depends. Here in Mexico, we're more used to smaller vehicles.
I gotcha.
And Jay, you do need to go to Greece. It's amazing. The food,
Hmm.
lovely. And Tom, I think you mentioned Portugal. My mom is from Portugal, so my family is from Portugal, and
Okay.
it's beautiful. The food is amazing. The views are spectacular. So yes, I recommend.
It's supposed to be fairly affordable too, right? Like that's one of the places my wife has looked at. Like
Yeah.
for a year, you could stay there pretty cheap, and the food seems
Yeah.
pretty affordable. So
Yeah, I would say both Greece and Portugal, the most expensive thing is to get there. But once that you're there, food and it's cheaper than here in Mexico. And I know that here in Mexico is cheap for you. So
Yeah, my friend, a really good close friend of mine, was sending me pictures throughout the entire Portugal trip. And to your point, everything was a meal with a view. It was gorgeous. It was stunning. The food looked amazing. He attested of how amazing it was. There was always a bottle of wine. I mean, it seemed like they had a blast, and they took their family with kids too. So it was a whole family thing.
they're very people
yeah.
oriented, it seems like too, and they're very out in plazas and spaces, and
Hmm.
they're not insulating themselves in something. They seem to be interacting with people, even if they're sitting at a restaurant, like it's on the
Yeah.
open air breezeway where people are walking around. It seems like a very communal experience in some ways.
Yes, and something that I was amazed when I was in Greece last year is that, for example, you could have a bar, and even if the bar is full, outside in the sidewalk, they will give you like a blanket, so you can still be in the bar, but you're in the sidewalk with a blanket. And I think that's amazing because it's not only the place, it's where the people you're with, and the experience that you're creating. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go one more round because I think there's going to be some other questions that we can pop up. And, I started the whole thing today asking you about your career path and how you got into Park and Rec, but I'm just curious if you were not in Park and Rec, what profession do you think you would be in?
Hmm. When I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
So I I really like to talk, and so I like that, but also I don't know if I see myself in that anymore. So I also like marketing, so maybe something along those lines.
Cool.
You look more like a lawyer than the three of us combined right now
Oh,
in this
yeah.
chat.
So, all right, let's see. Let's go along the lines also of just the Parks and Rec piece. You live your life trying to promote this wonderful profession and trying to expose other individuals to experiences and facilities, amenities. What about yourself? Personally, what is leisure and recreation? What do you do to unwind it's kind of we always talk about that. I think we talk with a lot of our guests that we tend to say, "Oh, are we in our leisure time? Are we getting away from Parks and Recreation?" But what does that look like for you?
Mm, I do like to go out in nature and in the parks. I would say more for me here where I am at like my hometown are the beach is really close for where I live. So you wanna, get away from people and just to unwind, I would go to the beach and just stay there for a few days. Um, but if I'm at the park, I love a good picnic or reading a book and being with friends. Yeah, that's and I would say like once that you start working in this, you cannot see parks the same way.
Yeah.
I'm a green flag award judge, so also like going into a park, it's you cannot ever turn off like your judge,
Yeah.
view and perspective. But it's another way of experimenting the parks, experiencing sorry the parks and the public spaces that we have.
I've got two, Jay, so I've got one after this if you don't have one. But
Yeah.
we've asked this to others on the podcast. I don't know if familiar with our stupid little podcast, but it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on it. So let's say life is for some reason moving you to America. You have to move here and you have to work in our industry. Where would you be interested in working, either a state or even an agency, and what role would you be interested in?
I think maybe state level,
Okay.
but more like a inside an agency, like a Parks and Rec agency. And
Is there a state that you're like, man, I'd love to live in this state?
You mentioned Iowa before, and maybe that's not the state, but I was curious why
why
Iowa?
Iowa?
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
car break down there, you couldn't get away for a couple days. This rental didn't, the tires went flat.
I always get the reaction when I say Iowa. I'm really attached to Iowa because I did part of my college years in Iowa. So now I have friends that have become family there. So
What
yeah,
university?
Central College.
Central College. Okay.
Yep. It's in a city called Pella, really near, really close to Des Moines. So part of my one side of me wants to say Iowa because I have family there and I would love to be closer to them. But I think I would want something a little bit bigger, um, just so I can have that experience. And I would love something related to either like partnerships or like content and programming. That I feel like those three. If you're hiring, please let me know where can I apply because I would love. I'm really into the that idea of starting new somewhere else. So I would love to, at some point move to another country or experience Parks and Rec more in the field. Because right now what I do is like I am a parks professional, but at the same time I'm not working in the field. So I would love to get that experience.
That's cool.
And then my last one, your LinkedIn profile says you're hiring. So if you hired us three knuckleheads, based on what you know so far from us, what role would you give us?
I would give you like communications
Oh boy,
department
we're in
or
trouble.
something like that.
Vitoria, we're in trouble if
Um,
I'm over communications.
Yeah. You might want to double check that. He
Yeah.
probably has about 80 text messages he hasn't read yet.
Don't worry
Yeah,
about it. She's fine.
that-
So she got me
that's one
communications.
that's one problem. The other problem is how familiar are the people of Mexico with American cuss words, because that's going to be another issue.
Don't rain on my
it's
parade.
okay. We can teach you Mexican cuss words.
Beautiful. Now I'm all in. Let's go. Now, what are you going to give Jay and Tom? What's their roles?
I'm gonna give Jay something more
Probably
administrative,
boring.
but
Yeah, give him something
but
Administrative.
boring.
like no, but like also in charge of like commercial relations, something like partnerships, but more in the commercial side of it.
Okay.
And Tom,
Can I report to Jay?
I was gonna say, as long as I can be his boss, I'm okay
Yeah.
with it.
I feel like you could be a good fit in different departments,
Yeah.
but I know you're more into like facilities, right?
A little bit of everything. No, we do a little everything where I'm here. So I mean, yeah, I could.
Put him in
I'm a
charge of
chameleon.
toilets.
I'm a chameleon. I could fit in
Custodial.
anywhere.
She's putting you in custodial.
No, maybe like I feel like you need to be a little bit like closer to people, right? More like out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something more in charge of like events and programming,
Oh,
but
here we
from
go.
like a conference standpoint, like speakers and
I can see that.
I was gonna say,
different brands and stuff like that.
I like it. I think you nailed it. Honestly, I mean,
Let's
Shane's
just
is a
go work for
stretch.
AP&R. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's figure this out.
let's do this.
I mean, I would put Shane under someone's supervision,
Yeah,
but I
you're gonna
think
have to.
he could be good at it.
Good call.
I think that's a smart move there.
This is awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks for the time.
yeah. This was so much fun.
No, thank you for
Yes.
having me. It
Thank
was
you so much
a
for
really
joining.
good conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing all the great things that you're doing, both in your association and around Mexico and around the world, really. If you're involved with other activities as well, and hope to see you at the conference in Philadelphia this year if you're coming.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the plan. I will see you there, and hopefully I
Tijuana.
might see you in Tijuana. Exactly.
I might need to look into that. That would be awesome.
Yes, you should. There's a really good, if you like wine, there's good wineries close to
Okay.
Tijuana. So, see,
Reckless in
always an
Tijuana.
excuse.
That'd be fun. I might get a
Sounds good.
passport for that.
I can create a booth just so you can record podcasts if that's interesting to you.
That'd be
So-
amazing.
Okay,
Now we're doing it.
got us.
There you go.
Well, Vitoria, thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time. We really appreciate it. This was fantastic.
Yeah.
Of
Thank
course,
you so
thank
much.
you for having me. And please, if I can help in any way, shape, or form, let me know. And I would love to connect and to keep collaborating together. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And
Our
I
pleasure.
would
Thank
hope
you.
that others will feel the same way, or if there's other things that like we can ever help with, either the three of us or any listeners out, share that on LinkedIn when we get this out there to the public, and hopefully you get some other connections that are built from this conversation.
Thank you, Jay.
Awesome. Thank you.
As
See
your
you.
director of communications, you just let me know.
I will send you your paperwork
Sounds
so you
good.
can start planning your moving into here, into
I love
Merida.
it. Love
I
it.
hope you like warm weather.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Texas is warm.
Because here's always 90 to 100 degrees.
Okay, let's go.
Sounds
I can
great
do it.
about now.
Yeah.
Perfect. So see you guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Adios.
Adios.
Jay, that was phenomenal.
She's incredible.
She is, yes, very incredible. My question before we continue to gush, Jay, how did you get connected?
So I have no connection with her whatsoever, but I saw some similarities with other folks on LinkedIn and just did a little bit of homework, did some research, and I said, you know what? I think she would be an awesome guest.
So you cold called her.
Cold called 100%. Yes. Shane mentioned Jane Miller. I've been on some committees with Jane Miller through Capra, and she's on a committee with Jane Miller. So I saw the name and just was doing some thinking about, as we were talking about this being 100, and I was like,
Yeah.
we've never had someone from like an international perspective. Either way, whether it was 100 or 110, it doesn't matter. But I thought it would be a cool dynamic to have her kick off the new season. And she was phenomenal. This was so much fun. Obviously learned a lot about her culture, her organization, how she can also learn from us in NRPA and the States. And it's such a dynamic that we don't talk about that we probably could or should more often.
Yeah.
Christine Stratton, for example, has a huge impact over us and in
Yeah.
RPA, and it's probably measurable. There's probably some degree that you could say, "Wow, look at the impact Christine had." But we have structures, we have infrastructure already built up in place. The impact she's having, what she will be able to look back on her career and see, will be so monumental compared to anyone that is an executive director at our level. I mean, she's created that green flag program and already done what UK said what she couldn't do in this short amount of time. She's,
Yeah.
5, 6x'd it. But then 5 or 6, I think she said, park systems have started to be created in municipalities because of her efforts. That's
Yeah.
the impact she's going to have on the residents in Mexico for decades, probably centuries to come, is incredible.
It's really cool. And in a very short period of time. So you almost wonder, like, okay,
Right.
she's done that with 6 or 7 park districts or organizations in that small window. If she continues at that pace, what's it going to look like in 5 years, in 10 years?
Yeah.
That's super
She's a
exciting.
bit of a juggernaut. There's no way I would bet against her on anything.
No.
No, and honestly, when we were talking about where she might come in the United States or want to be, honestly, there's probably going to be people listening to this who might be looking her up
Yeah.
because think of the impact that she can have in one of our agencies.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was incredibly poised, never thrown off by any of the dumb shit we're doing. Just calm, relaxed, very confidently spoke about what they were doing at all times.
Yes.
I was super impressed with her. That's
That's
the cool
wonderful.
byproduct of this podcast is we get to really interact with people like that.
Yeah. I agree. Well, hey, I teased it at the beginning that I was going to also just like throw a question at you guys based on the 100. Because I wanted to get to the guest right away. Now you know why I wanted to get to the guest right away. But
Yeah.
additional question to wrap things up for today. If you had to sum up in one word what the last 99 episodes meant to you, what would that one word be? And I'm going to let you guys think about it, and I will give you
Yeah.
my word. And I was thinking about this morning as I was thinking about what I wanted to ask.
At like 2 a.m.
What?
At like 2 a.m.
It
when you
was
were
about
jogging or
4:50 when I
something.
woke up. Yeah. Inspirational. That is my word. And you just mentioned like people might get the idea of reaching out to her. And I know we've talked about this a little bit, not too much, but like we've gotten a variety of text messages or emails throughout the last couple of years with doing this podcast. And we didn't expect that, but it's pushed us at times where we needed that push to find the time through a hectic week or to find the motivation when it was a tough day or a rough week to continue to do it and to know that it's making an impact. So it's inspirational for me. Is definitely that word.
Well, I gave it some thought, and I think I have the right fit. I also have two answers, as is typical. The first one's a joke, but as I think of it from the perspective of working with
Mistake.
you,
Been a
I
mistake.
was going to say irritating. When I think of working with the two of you, irritating. No, in reality, the word that I think of is fulfilling.
Hmm.
It has filled my cups over and over, time and time again. Every time that we have a new guest, you and of course hosting is fun, but when you bring on guests and I don't know who that's going to be and I leave that conversation, and obviously our setup, we typically do these on Fridays. Is there a better way to go into a weekend?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Honestly, think about that from before we were doing this show. The Fridays that you heard bad news, and I'm not saying that there isn't a Friday that we might not get bad news after the show, but typically that doesn't happen. This has been one of the most fulfilling experiences, 99, now 100 episodes in. So congratulations on 100 to all of us, I guess, but thank
Yeah,
you to both of you for, you know, joining on this ride and letting me be a part of it.
that's
I
great.
agree. I think I hope we get another 100 out of this. The word I thought of initially, and it probably sounds like a cop out, it just has meant everything to me. Like there's been moments where it's been tough. There's been moments where it's been inspiring. There's been moments where it's been all consuming, but it's it's just been everything. Like it is something that I'm starting in my headspace to think about looking for another job. I know that I've talked about this some before, but when you're someplace 6 or 7 years and you limit the amount of time you're going to be somewhere, I think the cool thing is it gives you an urgency to get some things accomplished. And so that's always been my mindset. And so I'm starting to reach that point. I I care. I've cared about the impact this thing's had on me, and like you said, on a Friday, even if I get bad news after this,
Yeah.
this has put so much in the bank. It almost can't deduct enough away from the bank. Like it can't withdraw you empty. And so, like, I've been thinking, like, I don't know if I would go somewhere if I talked to them and they were like, "Yeah, we're very interested in you, but Fridays are a busy day for us, and if you've got to be a director here, your Fridays, you'll have to give this podcast thing up." I don't think I'd give it up right now, and so it's just meant the world to me and to Hannah to meet all these different people, to see the impact that we've had, small scale, big scale, and I do appreciate all of us and all the hard work y'all do and what Hannah does for us to do this fun little thing it seems to really have an impact on people, and I'm very grateful for sure.
Awesome. Well, the cool thing is that we get to do it again next week, but in person.
In person.
Looking forward to seeing you guys next week, which I can't always say. And it's actually less than a week, really.
You can't always say you're looking forward to seeing us. Is that what you're saying? It's probably true.
I can't wait. I'm going to be on a plane with Shane.
That's right. That's right. I get gassy on a plane, Tom. Good luck.
I'm going to have to, well, okay, gassiness aside, I am just so interested in all of the intricacies that you have as an individual. We learned in Massachusetts, what was it, lambskin, lamb wool, towels. I'm just very interested to see your traveling
Turkish towels, yeah.
routine that I'm probably going to have to videotape a lot of this and
all the things I do, and all the all my ticks. Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see everybody.
Yes. It's a lineup.
Well, wrapping up another episode to kick off another season. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah. See you next time. Here's to another 100, I hope.
That's right.
Cheers. Here at RecLess, we love to give back to the community that we're so passionate about. We do that by providing scholarships to professionals to attend conferences they may not otherwise be able to attend. That's where you come in, sponsorships. If you are interested in a sponsorship, we'd love to connect with you. So this spot could be yours. Contact us today at recklesspod@gmail.com or check us out at recklesspod.com for more details.
This episode of RecLess wouldn't have been possible without the support of our agencies and our better halves, Melissa Salatino, Lindsay Tryon, and our executive producer, Hannah Mize. We also want to thank our director of hashtags and swag, Rooney Taylor, and our team of junior producers, Luke, James, Elizabeth, Grant, and Harper. Stay up to date on all things RecLess by following all of our social media, and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to ensure you don't miss an episode. See you next time on RecLess.